The strait at Dan-no-ura, 1185. A Taira commander walks the deck of a sinking flagship, sweeping it clean with his own hands, calm as a man tidying a room. He had known this was coming for 2 years. Why did he keep fighting? He saw the end 2 years before it came. He never once told his clan to stop fighting. What kind of commander does that? Taira no Tomomori was the 4th son of Taira no Kiyomori, the man who had lifted their family to the summit of Japanese power and kept it there for 20 years. Born in 1152, Tomomori grew up inside a household that had never lost anything. By the time he was 30, that household was coming apart. Kiyomori died of fever in the spring of 1181, telling his family to build him no temple and hold no services, only to bring him the head of Minamoto no Yoritomo. He left the clan to his 3rd son, Munemori. Munemori was not a soldier. The tale of the Heike treats him with something close to contempt. A man who wept easily, hesitated constantly, and had inherited a war he had no idea how to fight. Tomomori was the opposite. The year before, at the Uji River, he had helped crush the first Minamoto rising and driven Minamoto no Yorimasa to suicide. Now, with the Taira fresh from breaking Minamoto no Yukie's army at the Tsunomata River, Tomomori was named to lead the campaign east and finish the war. Then he collapsed with fever. Famine spread through the provinces, and the advance was cancelled before it began. It was the last moment the Taira could still have won the war. It never came again. By the summer of 1183, Minamoto no Yoshinaka was descending on Kyoto from the north, and the Taira had nothing left to stop him. They abandoned the capital they had governed for a generation, burning their own mansions behind them, and carried the child emperor Ontoku and the 3 sacred imperial treasures west toward the inland sea. Tomomori went with them. He had spent his entire life inside that city, in a family that assumed the city belonged to it. Every account of that departure suggests he already understood he would not be coming back. At sea, the Taira were still formidable. They knew the tides and channels of the inland sea, the way the Eastern warriors knew horses. And that winter, they destroyed one of Yoshinaka's fleets at Mizushima. But Tomomori could count. Every victory on the water bought weeks. Every defeat on land cost provinces. And the Western lords sworn to the Taira had quietly begun sending messages to Kamakura. He was winning battles inside a war that had already been decided somewhere else. He went on fighting them, exactly as though it mattered. In the 2nd month of 1184, the Taira were caught at Ichinotani, a fortified camp pinned between mountains and the sea. Yoshitsune's cavalry came down a slope no one believed a horse could descend, and the camp came apart in minutes. Tomomori ran for the boats. His 16-year-old son, Tomoakira, turned back into the fighting to hold off the pursuit long enough for his father to reach the water, and was killed there. Tomomori got aboard a ship. He is said to have wept, and said that no father would have done for a son what his son had just done for him. A year later, at Yashima, Yoshitsune did it again, arriving from a direction the Taira had left undefended and panicking them onto their ships before they understood how few men had actually attacked them. Each defeat pushed the clan further west and further out to sea, with less coastline left to land on. By the third month of 1185, the Taira held no territory at all, only ships. Their allies in Kyushu were changing sides. There was no province to retreat into, no army coming, and no version of the future in which they survived.
Before the fleets met at Dan-no-ura, Tomomori went to his brother with a request. One of their own commanders, Taguchi Shigeyoshi of Awa, had a son in Minamoto hands, and Tomomori was certain the man had already sold them. He asked permission to take his head. Munemori refused. There was no proof, and the clan could not afford to lose the ships Shigeyoshi commanded on the strength of a suspicion. Tomomori let it go. He had spent 4 years being right and being overruled, and by then he had learned not to argue. His plan for the battle was built on deception. The Taira would fill the great Chinese ship, the obvious flagship, the vessel any enemy would go for first, with ordinary soldiers, and keep the clan's commanders and the imperial party on the plain boats around it. Let Yoshitsune commit everything to the wrong target, then close on him from every side at once. It was a good plan. It depended entirely on the Minamoto not knowing which ship was which. Around midday, Shigeyoshi's boat swung out of the Taira line and rowed toward the enemy. Tomomori watched it happen from his own deck, and there was nothing in it he had not already imagined. Shigeyoshi told the Minamoto precisely which ships mattered. The arrows shifted to the plain boats. The current in the strait reversed, as it did every day of the year, and Taira ships that could no longer be rowed drifted down into the enemy fleet. What followed was not a battle. Tomomori did not shout and did not try to rally anyone. He climbed down into a small boat and had himself rowed toward the ship carrying the Emperor. What he did next is the strangest and most human moment in the whole account. He came aboard the Imperial ship and began cleaning it, sweeping the deck, gathering up the wreckage of the fighting with his own hands, tidying the boat while the women of the court watched him in silence. One of them asked what was happening. He answered with terrible politeness that they were shortly going to meet some gentlemen from the eastern provinces. Then he said the line he has been remembered for ever since, that he had now seen everything a man needed to see. His mother, Taira no Tokiko, took the child emperor into her arms and went over the side. The court ladies followed her. Tomomori waited until there was no one left to give an order to, then pulled on a second suit of armor over the first. Enough weight to be certain he would not float and would not be hauled out alive by anyone. His foster brother,
Ienaga did the same. The two of them took hold of each other's hands and stepped off the edge of the ship together. He was 33 years old.
His brother did not. Munemori went into the water as well. The accounts disagree over whether he jumped or was pushed by a retainer who could not stand to watch him hesitate, and was fished out alive by Minamoto sailors, along with his son. He was taken east to Kamakura, displayed to Minamoto no Yoritomo, and beheaded that summer on the road back. The head of the Taira clan finished as a prisoner. The man who had actually run its war finished at the bottom of the strait, exactly as he had arranged. The strait went quiet by evening. For 20 years, the Taira had governed Japan in all but name, and in a single afternoon, their leadership was gone. Drowned, captured, or hunted down in the weeks that followed. Tomomori's body was never identified. Somewhere under the tidal race off Shimonoseki, in 2 suits of armor, holding another man's hand, the most capable commander the Taira ever produced, stopped being a part of history. He immediately began becoming something else. 3 centuries later, the No Theater gave him back. In the play Funa Benkei, Yoshitsune's boat is putting out from the coast when the sea rises, and Tomomori's ghost comes out of it, armored, furious, swinging a naginata across the waves, still trying to finish the battle he lost. He is not driven off by a sword. He is driven off by a priest's prayers, because a sword would be pointless. You cannot kill a man twice. So Japan imagined him simply refusing to stay dead. The stage kept rewriting his death, and it kept getting heavier. In one No play, he goes down wound in the rope of a ship's anchor. On the kabuki stage, in Yoshitsune and the 1,000 Cherry Trees, he hauls the anchor up onto his shoulder, wraps the line around his own body, and falls backward off the deck with it. One of the most famous images in Japanese theater. The historical account only ever said 2 suits of armor. Audiences needed the weight to be something they could see. Along the strait itself, the drowned never entirely left. Fishermen pulled up crabs whose shells looked like scowling human faces and called them Heike crabs. Sailors reported figures rising out of the water beside their hulls at night, asking to borrow a ladle so they could fill the boat and take it down with them. The Funa Yurei, the ship ghosts, the Taira, still trying to sink somebody. And at Akama Shrine in Shimonoseki, where the child emperor is enshrined, the Taira dead have had a caretaker for 800 years. What makes Tomomori unusual is not the way he died. Plenty of men in that war chose the water over capture. It is that he spent his last 2 years fighting a war he had already worked out he was going to lose, and never once used that knowledge as a reason to stop. He was not hoping. He was not deceived. He simply refused to accept
except that knowing the ending released him from the work in front of him. That is a harder thing than courage, and it is why Japan has never let him go.
7 centuries later, another man went on fighting a war that was already over. The vice commander of the Shinsengumi, riding into rifle fire on a northern island in 1869, long after the government he had served had ceased to exist. His name was Hijikata Toshizo.
Taira no Tomomori saw exactly how his world was going to end, years before it ended, and went to work anyway. That is the whole of him. Subscribe for a new story from Japanese history every day.